Welcome to step number 5 of the full sew-in hairstyle. In this step, I'm going to be teaching you how to create your Chinese bangs with your full sew-in hairstyle using Mrs. Rutter's hair extensions from mrsrutters.com. At this point, now that you've sewn in your closure, you can now begin styling your full sew-in. And what I'm going to be teaching you is how to create bangs for your style. Now, whenever you're cutting virgin hair, you want to make sure that you are already experienced with doing a particular cut or with cutting hair in general. If you aren't sure or you haven't had much experience cutting your own hair, then I suggest that you practice on maybe some cheaper hair to make sure that you're used to the motions and that you can perfect the cut before you do it on more expensive hair. So at this point, what you want to do is make sure that you have your scissors on hand. You want to make sure you have your rat tail comb and your flat iron on your temperature of 350. The first thing you want to do is section off the bang area that you're going to be cutting. Now, as high or as low as it goes will depend on your taste, but mine will fall about where my eyebrows are. Now, as far as how wide the bangs will be, I like to make sure that they're past my eyes, because if they're too far inward, they get in the way of my lashes and I have to constantly move hair out of the way. So that's the way you want to section your bangs, and I'm going to walk you through how you want to cut your bangs as well. So first, section your hair, and when you're combing your hair down, make sure that you're not forcing certain pieces to go a certain way, because if you cut that hair, that piece that you forced to lay a certain way will constantly cause problems. Let your hair flow naturally and just keep it sectioned off how you want it to be before you cut it. So now once you have your hair sectioned where you want your bang to be, go ahead and use your comb to comb down all of your hairs in a direction it naturally wants to lay for the last time, to make sure that if there's any hairs that are forcing them away to be away from your bangs, that you move those out the way. And other hairs that may seem to fall more in line of your bang, you can move those hairs into the section that you actually want to cut. So just comb all your hair down to make sure that you're not forcing any hairs in a certain way, so that you can make sure you're only cutting the appropriate hairs you want for your bang. So now for one final check, you want to make sure that you drop the bangs and check that it's going and laying down exactly how you want your bangs to be. So now that we're right before cutting, make sure that you gather all of your hair in a ponytail so none of your hair comes down, and then use these clips to help keep your hair sectioned layers at a time. The best way to cut your bangs is to make sure that you're doing so in small sections at a time. You want to make sure that you section off your first track to make sure it's combed all the way downwards, and then you're going to cut exactly how long or short you want the bang to be. Once you do that, that will serve as your guide for how far you're going to cut each thin layer. So that way when you go to the second layer, you just comb the hair down very softly, allowing it to lay exactly how you want it to lay, and then you're going to slowly trim across to make sure it's going to be even with your first layer. After you finish cutting your bangs, this is what your full sew-in should look like. Now, as I've stated before you actually cut your extensions, you have to make sure that you know how to cut your hair appropriately by practicing on cheaper hair. Because if you accidentally cut your hair too high or mess up your cut in any way, you will have to start all over and take the hair down because the style wouldn't look right. When you're cutting your hair, you have to first establish a guide. That means that you're going to take your first track that's closest to your hairline and you're going to comb it down gently and let all the hairs lay exactly how they want to lay. By doing this, you're not forcing a hair to be a certain way so that when you cut it, it still lays exactly how it should lay. Once you establish where your guide will be by making a small snip at wherever area you want it to be, then you're going to finish cutting off both sides of that section of hair. That section of hair will guide exactly where you will cut each layer as you work on each section of extensions at a time. So after you do that, you go on to your next section, you let down a track of hair, you comb it down without forcing hairs to lay in a certain way. You just comb it down, and wherever they lay, you're just gonna cut and use your guide that you created, so that way the hair is exactly where you want it to end. As you do this, of course, you keep working your way all the way through, and then once you're done, just use your flat iron to lightly flip the ends just a little bit to give you that little bump for your bang. So now that your bangs are finished, in the very next step, step number 6, I'm going to be showing you the finished result to your full sew-in hairstyle.